Suggestions for treatments. In giving mental and spiritual treatments, it is better not to dwell too much on the negative, since we are liable to give it undue importance. To affirm the presence of God is better than to deny the presence of evil. However, if the presence of evil persists in making its appearance, it is sometimes well to deny it, to know that it is neither person, place, nor thing, that it does not belong to us, and that it cannot operate through or around us. It is neither cause, medium, nor effect. It is neither imagination, idea, nor reflection. It is neither visible nor invisible. It cannot emanate from God and does not emanate from man. The devil is a myth, and heaven is lost merely for lack of an idea of harmony. Quote, stand still and watch the sure salvation of the Lord, unquote. This Lord is always an indwelling presence, the individual I, which is an incarnation of the universal, quote, I am, unquote. A practitioner should think of his patient as a perfect entity living in a perfect universe, surrounded by perfect situations and governed by perfect law. The entire universe is devoted to this good. Quote, all the Father hath is mine. Arise, O Son, and take, unquote. This taking is better accomplished through an affirmative attitude of mind than by dwelling too much on the negative. Quote, behold, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, unquote. But this kingdom must be recognized. The recognition is a mental act. We must know that the all-powerful Spirit is ever available and ever equal to the healing of any discordant condition of body, mind, or affairs. But we must never look outside of ourselves to find this Spirit, since it is indwelling. What we really do is to look within our own consciousness and pray, and quote, pray to the Father who is in secret, and the Father who seeth in secret shall reward us openly, unquote. The sincere practitioner will be sure his own thought is clear, that his own fate is equal to the demands made upon it. Above all else, he must be careful not to be caught in the negative stream of consciousness. Jesus could not have raised Lazarus from among those who were believed to be dead if he had been afraid to, quote, roll away the stone. If he had listened to the wailing of those about him. To be spiritually minded is to enter that tranquil atmosphere of pure thought, that heavenly consciousness, which is the secret place of the Most High in man. Those were quotes. In beginning a series of treatments for any person, we start with the idea of perfect God, perfect man, and perfect being. In every case, it is well to begin by the removal of doubt and fear, to assure ourselves that the one whom we are seeking to help is complete and perfect, harmonious and whole. Next, we must conform our arguments, statements, and realizations so that they measure up to this high ideal. It is easy to believe that God is perfect. We must also believe that the spiritual man is perfect, and since it is difficult to believe that the objective man is perfect, we must confine our statements to a realization of the spiritual perfection of man. In such degree as our realization becomes a subjective embodiment, the objective healing will automatically take place. We know the background of human thought is, to a great extent, one of negation, a denial of a harmonious and spiritual universe. Consequently, our outlook on life must be transformed by the renewing of the mind. Even when the results are not immediately forthcoming, we must still maintain a calm serenity of thought. We must relight the torch of our imagination by, quote, fire caught from heaven, unquote. We must remain faithful to this vision, for a realization of the presence of God is the secret power of our work. The following examples are not to be considered dogmatic. They are merely suggested ways by which one may do effective work. The practitioner must realize that all power is given unto him. He must believe that man is spiritual, and he must be certain that his statements about the spiritual man will find a corresponding outlet in the physical man. However, he is very careful to treat the physical man, but to think of man's entire being as spiritual, and if man's entire being is spiritual, then his physical being must reflect spiritual ideas. The practitioner supplies these spiritual ideas and lets the law of mind do the rest. To begin the treatment by a silent assurance that man, being spiritual, is exempt from negation, is a correct starting point. Infinite love harmonizes man's entire being. The healing current of life flow through him. The healing currents of life flow through him, taking away every negative thought and manifestation, and adjusting his whole physical being to the idea of divine harmony. Next section. Do not try to go beyond your understanding. Since our spiritual understanding is not sufficient to enable us to mentally set bones, we call in a surgeon. Since we cannot walk on the water, we take a boat. We can only go as far as our spiritual knowledge takes us. Principle is infinite, but we shall demonstrate its power only at the level of concept of it. Every day we have the announcement from scientists that they have made new discoveries. Laws have always existed, but which have not as yet been utilized. Do not let anyone discourage or belittle your efforts by asking, quote, why don't you walk on water as Jesus did? Do not be sidetracked by any of these futile suggestions, these mental obstructions which an unbeliever would seek to throw in your path. If we had the understanding which Jesus had, we would be able to walk on the water. I am not at all confused by the fact that we do not do this today. Someday, one will come along who knows how to walk on or over the water. We are probably on the verge of a great spiritual awakening. People are so tired of looking for things where they do not exist that they are going to more and more completely open their thought to the realization that spirit is an active presence. But if we spend our entire time trying to find out why it does not work, we shall never find out how and why it does work. Arguing is often a waste of time. Somehow, there must come to each individual an interior conviction that we are one with the universe, and that the Spirit flows through us at the level of our recognition and embodiment of it. For this is, quote, the way, the truth, and the life. People say, I can't take off my glasses, then wear them, but begin to make the declaration that there is one perfect vision seen through you. This is the truth. If this statement became a subjective realization, you will be healed. You will no longer need glasses. If a plaster will relieve us, use it. If a pill does any good, then take it. But gradually try to lead the thought from where it is into the higher realms of consciousness where the soul recognizes its own I amness. Suppose one is unable to convince himself of the truth of the statement which he makes. How is he going to bring himself to a place of belief? By repeating his affirmations, dwelling on its meaning, meditating upon the spiritual significance of it, until the subjective state of his thinking becomes clarified. This is the only reason for repeating treatments. For one treatment would heal if there were no subjective doubts. For one treatment would heal if there were no subjective doubts. Repeated treatments induce within consciousness a definite concept of an already established truth, even though the fact may not as yet have become objectified. This is why mental healing is scientific. There is no room for doubt in a treatment. Realize that you treat with your understanding. By your own choice, you decide to give a treatment, but the treatment becomes operative through the law. Never say, I am not good enough to treat. In God, there are no good, better, or best. Do not allow yourself to become superstitious, for you are dealing with a normal, natural law in the mental and spiritual world. This law is just as real as any other known law. Never say, quote, I am not sure that I have enough power to treat. You can never heal with this mental attitude, for that implies that you think that you are doing the healing. Rather say, as I let fall the forms of my thought, they are operated upon by the principles in which I believe. This is the law of God, the law of man, and the law of the universe. Never say or think, this disease is hard to heal, while that presented yesterday was easy to heal. Was easy. If you find yourself saying this, at once heal yourself. Such a belief comes from the thought that we are dealing with a limited power and that such power knows degrees of discomfort. The truth is that there is but one power, and that power knows only perfection. Depend upon principle. Principle is the power that made everything. It is the absolute. It will not and cannot be denied. The only thing that can deny God is yourself. Do not think of disease as an entity, but as an impersonal thought force. In healing, you are separating the false from the true. The work is definite and dynamic, and is consciously done, always with a clear purpose in mind. If your thought is clear and you are able to realize the presence of spirit in your patients, your work will be effective. Through the proper use of this great subjective law, you can impress a definite idea upon it, and if you yourself do not withdraw that idea or neutralize it by an opposite one, the law will bring it into manifestation. What we need then is to learn the law governing this principle. When you give a treatment, you are definitely setting a universal law in motion, which must not only accept what you say, but the way in which you say it. If your treatment is given with a sense of struggle, it will manifest in that way. If it is given with a sense of peace, then it will manifest in a peaceful manner. Remember that's probably worth repeating. What you need then is to learn the law governing this principle. When you give a treatment, you are definitely setting a universal law in motion, which must not only accept what you say, but the way in which you say it. If your treatment is given with a sense of struggle, it will manifest in that way. If it is given with a sense of peace, then it will manifest in a peaceful manner. Remember that you need to assume no personal responsibility for the recovery of your patient, but you do have a definite obligation, which is to give the treatment properly, clearly, fully, and conscientiously. When you have agreed to do so, back of all of this, to the contrary, it is your business to mentally see the spiritual perfection in your patient. When you have occasion to treat yourself, call your own name and proceed with the treatment as though you were treating someone else. You may say, I am thus and so, so and so, quote, ellipsis dots, unquote. Disease will be healed provided you get at its cause and remove it. And by getting at its cause, we mean getting at the mental cause. And provided the one for whom you are working is willing to surrender that cause. You cannot heal anyone of his trouble if it is the result of some mental attitude which he will not surrender. In this case, find out what the mental attitude is and remove it by showing the patient the right mental attitude. It is the practitioner's duty to uncover false ideas of life and replace them with the truth. If this can be done before disease destroys the physical body, a healing will always follow. How habits are acquired and treated. What is a habit? A habit is desire objectified. The continuous character of one's thoughts and feelings, desire for something that will give satisfaction. At the root of all habit is one basic thing, the desire to express life. There is an urge to express in all people, and this urge operating through the channels of the creative mind looses energy into action and compels the individual to do something. Back of all this desire is the impulse of spirit to express. In man, this impulse must express at the level of consciousness. For each, for the joy of working, and each in his separate star, shall paint the things as he sees it, for the gods of things as they are. As the quote says, to repeat, for each for the joy of working, and each in his separate star, shall paint the thing as he sees it, for the God of things as they are. Some express themselves constructively and some destructively. Suppose a man who has the liquor habit comes to you to be healed. You would not treat that habit. You would not pray for the man to be healed. You would know that you are dealing with a man who has a desire to express life, and who for the moment thinks he must express it in terms of intoxication. He once thought this expressed reality to him. He now knows that it does not, but he cannot with mere willpower stop it, for the habit appears to have taken complete possession of him, as we well remember always that unless we control thought, it will control us. To repeat that section. Suppose a man who has the liquor habit comes to you to be healed. You would not treat that habit. You would not pray for the man to be healed. You would know that you are dealing with a man who has a desire to express life, and who, for the moment, thinks he must express it in terms of intoxication. He once thought this expressed reality to him. He now knows that it does not, but he cannot with mere willpower stop it, for the habit appears to have taken complete possession of him. We might well remember always that unless we control thought, it will control us. In giving treatment, first recognize who and what this man is saying. Something like, this man is full and complete. This man is the full and complete expression of truth, and as such he is free from any sense of limitation. He is not bound by any sense of inferiority, which he needs to cover up, for he is a unique individuality expressing all the attributes of God. He is free from any delusion of fear or of delusion. He is free from any delusion or fear of delusion. He knows that the spirit of truth within him is complete and always satisfied. He has no longing outside of the longing to express his own divinity, and he has the assurance that he shall be able to gratify this. Quote, blessed are they who do hunger and thirst after righteousness, that is to say, right living, for they shall be filled. This thing which calls itself the liquor habit has no power over him and cannot operate through him. By the power of this word which I am now speaking, this habit is completely destroyed and forever obliterated. Then mentally see him free and harmoniously expressing life and happiness. Treating pain. The use of peace with the realization of a perfect presence.